Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. We're still in Pride Month, and remember that Pride Month is actually our whole entire life. We get to be proud of ourselves every single day because we can be gay with God. So, I want to talk a little bit today about talking with God. And through my lifetime, I don't know if it's the same for you, but through my lifetime, I have always had this desire to communicate with God. And sometimes I didn't really know if there was a God or how God got here or who God's people are. And, my faith has been one of those things that, we've talked about. It was based out of fear. Didn't want to go to hell, a lot of religious trauma, a lot of fear-based doctrine. But I always wanted to believe that there was a God that really cared, that really had our best interest at heart, and that if I talked to God, God would hear me, and that little mustard seed would grow, and I'd be able to have that relationship with God and be able to talk to God and really feel heard. The heard part comes and goes. And so just so we have an understanding that, God is the umbrella of all that is. And under that umbrella, we have us, we have all of the ancestors, we have all the saints, we have all of the creation, everything that is under God's umbrella, including the Son that He gave us, named Jesus, and the Holy Spirit that came down through Pentecost. So God, as the umbrella, is always covering us, covers us with as much love and compassion and as much parental interference as necessary. So I do believe that God has the ability, if God wanted to course correct us, to help us, to heal us. I believe all of that. And I believe sometimes I don't hear God at all because it seems like I'm talking, and I'm not getting anything back. And when I stop to think about it, I really realize that I'm doing all the talking and I'm not giving God a chance to even give me an inkling as to what I need to know or what I need to hear. I don't get the burning bush. I don't get an audible. I get those nudges. I get a sense of a direction to go. And so it's sort of like a silent partner in a way. I would have preferred to have the burning bush always. I would love to have something written on the big old wall. And, I'm a visual person. So being really quiet and listening for those nudges, to trust. That's probably the main thing about talking with God, is just to trust that God will present what I need when I'm paying attention. And you've probably heard the thing that, God will, tap you on the shoulder, and then God will give you a little push, and then God may thump you on the head. What does it need to take for us to sort of lean into where God is speaking and we can hear Him in our own personal way? And it really is, I think, a personal journey. Everybody gets it a different way. And so we can't compare ourselves to people who are saying, oh, God told me, I heard God's voice. Well, wow, that's big. And I'm not saying people don't, but for me, I don't get audibles, I don't get visuals, but I do get what I need. So it could come in the form of a person coming into my life that day by a phone call, or I meet them at the store or whatever, and they may say the thing that I needed to hear, Or I get an alert on my computer that a book is being sold, and I look at the book and it's like, oh, that's what I needed. That's what I wanted. Today, even, and it actually started like a couple days ago, I'd been playing the same CD over and over and over. And then I found, because I was looking for something else and I didn't find what I was looking for, but I found the old CD from my college days when I was in the chorale at Berkshire Christian College. And so I pulled it out and I thought, oh my gosh, I hadn't listened to it in such a long time. And so I put it in this morning and I was doing some errands and I'd been feeling kind of, I don't know what the real word would be, but I've just been exhausted from being sick for so long, and I've been out. I call it the wilderness. I've been away from people, and I love being around people and serving and doing those things, and I've not been able to do anything. And I'm just now trying to get back into the world and trying to do outside of the house things, and I'm just don't have a whole lot of stamina. And the world is still a challenge, and the things that Donald is doing right now is just making my blood boil. And I just felt out of sync with God's love and with my potential to be on this earth and make good things happen and to put out the good, because I feel like I'm just surrounded by the negativity and that's all I've been spewing. And I was feeling really, really sad. Um, and I'd finished one errand and I got in the car and I put, turned the tape back on, and the song He's Alive came on. Now, Steve Ross from our choir sang the lead on that. The rest of us were, background oohs and ahs and that kind of thing. But and it was just the most sacred, amazing song that I hadn't ever heard it before. I know a lot of people have taped it, but I had never heard it before until Steve Ross did it when we sang it as a choir. And it was the hardest thing for me to get through. Every single time we sang it, I had to really, really work hard at, not just bawling through the whole thing. It's so powerful and so amazing. And Steve did such a great job. And that song started today, and I'm like, oh, I love the song. Steve did such a good job. And, I started, trying to remember my part, which was hard. But I tried to remember my part and sing along. Um, and it got to the point where I just started bawling. I'm in my truck. I'm driving home, and I am literally bawling through this song. And it just moved me so deeply. And I thought, ah, that prayer that I prayed before I left the house this morning during my morning devotions, and the prayer I had prayed was basically, I don't feel like I'm the spokesperson you need. I don't think that I'm the person that ever should have been called to preach. I don't think, I was really having a massive pity party this morning, and then that song just moved my soul. And the next thought in my head was, if you weren't the person I needed, you wouldn't be so emotional. And I'm like, wow. I just cried harder after that. And so I love the fact that when we talk with God, God will always respond. It may be really subtle. It may be something that someone said, well, you just made that up. That's just what you wanted to hear God say. Well, yeah, I would like to hear God say that. But it doesn't matter what I want. Just because I want something from God doesn't mean it's just going to magically happen. It means that when it's the right thing for me in my walk with God to do what Jesus is asking me to do on his behalf now that he's not on earth in a physical form, that communication between myself and Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit is my personal journey. And so if I am aligned with that, if I am open to receiving the messages that I need to receive, it's going to come from them when I need it and not even because I want it. It's if I need it to fulfill the mission, the job, the whatever I'm supposed to do on earth. So talking with God is something that I don't think that I can go a day without, but it changes from day to day. Sometimes I talk with God because I'm in devotions and I'm asking a question out loud that, well, I don't understand that. Well, why would you do it that way? And sometimes I imagine that they're all sitting across the table from me or, in the living room with me. And I'm like, what was that about? I mean, I don't even understand that. Or that's really horrible. And I can't believe you did that back in the day. So, my relationship with the Trinity is, of course, my own personal journey. It's not going to be like yours, and that doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. It's important, though, that we are always in communication with God, because without that, even though God still works in our lives, and I truly believe that God continues to show up and work in our lives, even if we're not talking with God, God is still working, trying to pull us back to the place where we need to be. And I talk to God about Donald all the time because I have such bad feelings about this entire regime that's going on, and I'm just pleading and begging and asking, when are people going to do what they need to do, the people who are in charge? I'm very impatient, and I'm sure that's not helping any of us for me to be so impatient. Not that I can do anything about the whole entire world, but all of us are being called to make this world a better place. And me being part of the hate by hating everything they're doing, personally for me, I'm not doing the job I'm supposed to be doing. In our Sunday evening session last night, we talked about the Lord's Prayer. And it's so interesting. I'd read some things from the Bible Project, and it talked about how this prayer that Jesus gave people when they asked, how are we supposed to pray? It's the same elements in that prayer that Jesus prayed in Gethsemane when Jesus was, kind of conflicted about what he was going to have to go through. And he had asked, can you just take this from me? Is there any other way to fulfill what God was wanting than putting him on the cross and having his physical body died? And he said, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. And then he said, but not as I will, but as you will. So that whole part of the Lord's Prayer where we talk about thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven is combining Jesus's conversation with his Father and then giving us the prayer so that we can then be a part of talking with the God of our understanding. Now, understand that when everything is addressed in the male, that's part of the culture of those times. So to say our Father doesn't mean that Father was not also Mother. Because when you think about it, the God of our understanding, the big umbrella, has to be male and female because we are all different. We all have the one thing that combines all of us is the energy that was breathed into us at the time of conception. So we are all a piece of that divinity, but it makes perfect sense to me that there's the male and female energy in that energetic God of our understanding because God created everything. That's like mama's birthing babies. And God is also the patriarch in our family because that's the way that goes. In the society that we grew up in, it was all about the patriarchy. And if, Jesus referred to anybody other than a male back then, that would just be another way for them to discount what he had to say. So when we talk about this prayer that we were given, it starts out with our Father, not mine, not yours, ours, because we are in community. We are all together. And so it is our God of our understanding, our Abba, our all that is. However you want to refer to Father or God is totally your choice. And I promise, I really don't believe that God cares. It's just a way of an introduction. And it's also a way of including all of us together in this relationship and in this family. So, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's important to remember the sacredness of our relationship with the God of our understanding. And who are we talking to? We are talking to the supreme energy, the big umbrella that has created everything, loved everything, protected everything, and kept us going through all of this time and before time. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Now, this is the part that I start to think, all right, thy kingdom come makes me think that I'm not going anywhere. That kingdom's supposed to be coming to us. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And we're talking about thy will be done because who knows better than the God of all creation how this is all lined up and how this is all supposed to go? I'm not in charge of the GPS. I have absolutely no idea how this is all going to pan out as we're going through it. I know what the end result is supposed to be, but how we get there? I'm an Aries. I don't have a sense of direction anyway, so I'm not the one that needs to be telling us how we're going to get there. However, I'm looking at this script of talking to God and understanding that I need to line myself up here on earth the way I'm going to be living in heaven. So, and if you don't believe in heaven, that's okay. But let's just say better times. I want to get to the other side where there's better times, wherever that is and how it's going to happen. But I do believe it's going to be happening here. And we need to clean up our mess. And I personally need to clean up my mess. You know that whole thing in the Bible where it says take the speck out of your eye before you try to get take the log out of your eye before you take the speck out of somebody else's eye. Clean your own porch, yada, yada. I need to clean Midge up. I need to make sure that Midge is vibrating at the highest level of energy with love and compassion and, dare I say, patience with people. I need to fix me. And I'm responsible for me, and you're responsible for you, and everybody else is responsible for themselves. And if we could ever get it together and all vibrate at the same time, I think that's when kingdom comes. Not that I know for sure, because nobody knows. But this is telling me that thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Do it God's way. And God is love. God is compassion. God is who Jesus was. Because God sent Jesus to show us the path. And so the fruits of the Spirit, all the love and kindness and joy and all of that needs to be in our heart, radiating out into the world and speaking truth to power without hate, but love. And that's where I was really in a bad state this morning before I left the house, because I know I'm not vibrating with a whole lot of love with some of the things I've been seeing online lately. So I have to work on my level of energy. Where am I drawing it from, and how am I putting it out into the world? Give us this day our daily bread. God was always able to sustain the people in the wilderness, giving them manna, giving them, the fowl to eat. And God always sustained us through the beginning of the time all the way through now. God has always been there to sustain us. It's not an easy journey. It wasn't a piece of cake, I'm sure, to be out in the wilderness all that time as they were going through their journey, and yet they were always sustained. And we have to remember that no matter how bad this gets in this current regime, we are not alone. And we have community, and we have God that is still working behind the scenes. So give us this day our daily bread. And it's just a statement to know that we're connecting ourselves to the ancestors of everybody else who has always been sustained and provided for. And forgive us our trespasses. And here's the kicker. If we ask for it, we have to be willing to do it. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So how are we treating others? It's not about how they're treating us. They're responsible for how they're treating us. But no matter what they're doing, I have to make sure that I have the heart of forgiveness. That doesn't mean I accept what they do to me. That doesn't mean I agree with it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't bother me. What it means is if I hold on to the hate that they've given me, that hate will eat me up inside. It doesn't hurt them if I'm angry with them. They don't give. Well, you know what I was going to say. They don't care. So it's not about them. It's about me, and it's about you getting through this awful, awful, dark time, still connected to the God of our understanding so that we're lined up with where we're supposed to be headed. And lead us not into temptation. So that's a funny thing because I don't think that God leads us into temptation, but I think it's a reminder for me that, if I want to be delivered from evil, what am I doing? So, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So when I get a thought that says I need to turn off the social media, I'm being led away from the evil of that exposure. I'm being led to something better. If I have an idea that, I need to read that new book that I bought that I've, of course, not cracked the cover of, then shut off the electronics and go do it. So the temptation is not that, he's leading us into temptation. When I say, and lead us not into temptation, I think it's really more about me leading me into temptation. But anyway, I do know that there's an out. The out is that we will, if we're really, truly, truly connected to the God of our understanding, we are going to have what we need to get there. God's going to provide it. And if we're feeling depressed and angry and we can't find any compassion for the little spark of divinity that's in some of these folks that just have evil spewing all over themselves, that's my problem. That I can't see it, I can't find it, because I've consumed my mind, heart, and soul on being angry and on wanting justice. And it's okay to want justice, but we want justice for all people, and we want to go for justice with love as the leading path. When I resort back to filling my heart with anger, then I am not allowing myself to connect to the divinity with even inside myself. And when I say God's not with me, it's not that God's not with me, but I am tamping down his divine presence in my heart and soul, and I'm only vibrating on hate. And I'm not giving God a chance to work God's will in me because all I see is hate and anger. My journey as I talk with God is to continue to confess how angry I am and plead, God, to give me a relief from that and allow me to get back connected to the creator of all that is, the divine presence within me. And I'm the only one that can open that door back up. If I've slammed the door on God's loving nature because I'm radiating out of fear and anger, I have to open the door back up. And I can't do that when I'm still radiating with anger and fear and hate. I have to take a breath, open the door, and immerse myself back into the energy of God's divine love and reconnect with God's desire for me to have that loving relationship and for me to be able to then move that loving relationship back out into the world and radiate the mission that I've been given. You are precious in God's sight, You are God's beloved, and you have every right to be able to love yourself and send God's love out to everybody else. And when you feel that you have consumed yourself with the anger and hate of these times that surrounds us and it's so pervasive, take a break. Shut it all down. Sit in silence. Put on some music that makes you cry. And reconnect with the healing balm of God's presence. And let it just run over you and through you until you remember that you are so loved by the God of your understanding. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you for listening each week, supporting, sharing, and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see more information about me or links to connect with me, please go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. Check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly group entitled My Faith Journey. And if you need support to help you through your own coming out or faith journey, go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and see how you can connect with me to receive any coaching or support. Also remember during this Pride Month that my memoir is still for sale, Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story, and please pick up a copy of that book for yourself or others that may need to know that they have a God of their understanding waiting to be in relationship with them. And you can do that wherever you buy your books. You can also do it and get a signed copy from me at gaywithgod.com. And that's my website, gaywithgod.com, and you can buy a copy of the book there, and I'll be able to sign it for you before I mail it out. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, are not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.